Hello, Las Vegas, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Golf at the Park, Angel Park Golf Club's weekly interview show. I want to thank you for tuning in, liking, and subscribing to our channel. We really appreciate it. This week, we've got Brandon Bauman, our lead instructor here at Angel Park, in the studio with us. Brandon's story as a golfer goes quite a far bit back and all the way up until this day where he's planning on going back out on the road and trying to play golf competitively on the tour professionally. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's just start by welcoming Brandon to the show and starting at the beginning. Hey, Brandon, thanks for coming in.
Not a problem.
Appreciate it. Let's start. I know that you're born and raised here, so let's start with your golf story from the beginning.
Yeah, so born and raised here, and this is where I learned how to play golf. So back when the academy was actually on the north end of the range in that little shack.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was roughly 10-ish years old, so back in 2006, and basically been playing here every day since. Almost.
An Angel Park homegrown story. So back then, you were here starting. Well, yeah. So start how you're introduced to golf.
So how I was introduced to golf is my dad was always playing, and my brother started swinging a couple clubs, and he got my brother a set of irons, and I was like, I kind of want that. And so I started tagging along, started swinging, and right from the beginning, I was able to hit a few in the air. And I remember covering the second tier grass with a 7-iron, which is, I think, like 40 yards.
Yeah.
And I got super excited and somehow convinced my dad to let me start taking lessons. Got my first set of, I think, Cobra junior clubs. And, started with the academy basically the next week.
So you're starting here at Angel Park at, what, 11 years old?
Roughly, yeah.
And Tom Carlson's running it, but you probably started with some of the other instructors?
Yeah, so in the beginning when I was in the junior camps, I was working more with Reese, Amanda, and Jane.
Reese, what up? I definitely wanted Reese to come up on this cast. Reese Fernandez, we're going to have you in, another Angel Park alum that we're really excited to say hi to and hear his golf story. But anyway, so Reese is teaching you how to play golf, and you're playing. You're not competitive yet. You're probably going into high school. How's your golf game going along? How's that work?
So I think I was in 6th or 7th grade at the time. And, with Reese, he was teaching me the grip and the stance, and I think I've heard a few stories from him where I was a pretty stubborn kid, and I didn't really want to change too much.
That's fun.
But somewhere along the lines, I started to listen, started to play better, and then started playing in local junior tournaments, had some good results. Now we're getting into 8th grade, started taking it seriously. Oh, I got a chance to make the high school team, practicing my butt off, go to high school, boom, make the team.
So you're playing where? At Palo?
Yeah, Palo,
okay.
Right up the street. And then from there, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because I'm stubborn or if I just wanted to only be at the golf course, started getting halfway decent and playing in bigger and bigger tournaments, starting to travel to California, Arizona.
So you're playing in the AJGA tournaments, playing competitively regionally.
Yep, regionally, and then had a couple more good finishes there. Next thing you know, I'm traveling to the East Coast for these bigger tournaments, and it just snowballed, really.
So you're already traveling, playing golf in high school?
Yeah. So after my sophomore year of high school is when stuff started to get serious. Qualified for the U.S. Junior AM, qualified for Junior Worlds, qualified for North-South Junior, and these are all spread out throughout the country.
Wow.
And, times were tough back then, right? The economy wasn't that great, and I was fortunate enough to have two parents that allowed me to go and kind of built the dream that I have today.
That's fun. So you're playing competitively in high school, which has got to lead to you thinking about playing golf in college. How does that start working?
So I wouldn't say I was, the top of the top here in town, but I wasn't far off. I had chances to win state. Unfortunately, I never did, but I had chances to win. I was winning regularly in Las Vegas. And so looking at colleges, it was like, okay, if I go to this event and I play well, I can send out some emails. And I happen to play well. And then you get a few responses, and then you go to the next event. If I play well here, I can put this on my resume. I can email more colleges. And then right at midway through my junior year of high school, started getting responses. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
there's a couple guys out there, a couple teams that are interested. Huh. Maybe I've actually got a chance to do this.
How fun.
And, you just keep mass emailing these coaches, and hopefully a couple respond. And then not only do they respond, but then they start following you. They start tracking your tournaments. And then once they start doing that, next thing you know, you have a meeting set up with them. Once you have this meeting and they see if you're fit for the team or not, then you go play with them. That's when it gets real.
So you're almost auditioning.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's like a solo tryout. And I'll tell you what, as a scrawny little 16-year-old, 17-year-old, it's nerve-wracking. Because, in the back of your head, you're just so in love with golf, nothing really matters. But right up in the front center, you're competing with your buddies to go to the bigger school.
Yeah.
That this could be a launching pad for your career if you get into the correct school. So I went and played with a few of these coaches, and it's like, holy shit, it's a different league, right? And was fortunate enough to end up signing a scholarship and went off to UC Santa Barbara and had, in my opinion, a hell of a career.
Yeah, UCSB. So I was excited when I found out you went to school there, because the initial question I have is how did that go for you? I mean, that's a notoriously one of the biggest party schools in the world.
It's not for the faint-hearted. I put it to you that way. You have to be fairly dedicated to be in, I'll label it as that community, and to keep your golf game at a level that can compete, really. So I want to say we reported roughly 2 weeks early, maybe 10 days early. And our coach sat us down in this room with all the guys that were guaranteed spots. The walk-on and the tryout guys weren't in there yet. And he practically looked into our soul and said, you can be good at 2 or 3 things: school, partying, or golf. And you can only be good at 2. And he didn't say which one. He goes, I'm not going to say which one, but if you pick one of those, a certain one, you're gone. You're off the team immediately. It's not that he didn't want us to have fun, but it was basically a warning of keep your shit together.
I would assume at a school like that, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to draw a line in the sand.
Yeah, and it was challenging enough with the academics. I think I went to school there, and my freshman class, the average GPA was 4.2. So the academic side is already challenging enough. So, it would be a lie if I told you that I never partied there.
Sure.
But it was always controlled. It was never before a tournament. It was, it was in the off season. It was when we had the opportunity to.
Yeah.
And when you're in mid-season, you just have to be willing to, walk a straight and narrow line.
Yeah, I think that's cool. So UCSB, known for all of the courses around that you got to play and practice on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Santa Barbara and kind of the places you got to play in college?
So our mainstay course where we could play 7 days a week was Sandpiper. And if you haven't played it, highly recommend. It's phenomenal. And then a few of the other courses we had in our rotation were Valley Club, which is kind of known as Augusta's sister course. We got to play La Cumbre, Montecito Country Club, Rancho San Marcos, which unfortunately just shut down.
Just closed.
But the course layout at Rancho San Marcos, in my opinion, is top 10 I've ever played. It's phenomenal. And then our main practice facility was this little, basically, par 3 course driving range. That's where we would practice.
Right.
And it was a course called Twin Lakes, and that's honestly some of probably the most fun memories from being on the team was. Because whenever the par 3 course had nobody out there, we would go make some of the most insane cross-country golf holes you've ever seen.
Some of the best times at Cloud 9 are when we play cross-country golf and you just pick a tee and a green, and when it's too windy or too cold and you got the course to yourself and you just play.
So we would actually get a couple freshmen in every once in a while that would be like, you guys practice here? Like, why don't you just go practice at Sandpiper? It's like, you don't understand yet. Like, yeah, this might be a little par 3 course, but this is probably some of the best practice you can get in, right? The greens are good, the driving range is good, the chipping green's good. And if the course was open, use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
And then you're ready to go out on the big course, So it's It was a
That's
lot of
cool.
fun being able to play those different places.
So how does college golf go? How did those couple of years in Santa Barbara playing competitively? How are you doing?
Freshman year was tough right from the get-go. It's a little different being away from your coach.
Small fish in a big pond.
Yeah, right. So you went from being one of the best in your local area to now you are with the best of the best from their local areas too.
Yep.
Okay, so freshman year was tough, being away from your coach, being away from your family, being in a new city, blah, 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 blah. Luckily was able to grab the reins going into the spring season and started playing really well. And then had a fantastic summer, my freshman summer. I think I won a couple tournaments, a couple AMs over that. And then went into sophomore year, basically full steam ahead.
Yeah, you were telling me that it's interesting. Sophomore year of high school is when you had a big jump,
Yep.
and sophomore year of college is when you had another big jump.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just coincidentally.
Coincidentally, yeah. So, like sophomore year of high school, right? I started competing legitimately at a national level. Sophomore year of college, I started competing at a legitimate national level. I think I batted 500 for top 10s that year. I had 3 wins individually. Our team won, I think, 6 events.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just the year of years.
And against college golfers, you're competing against the best. So you're starting to think now, maybe I can make a career at this. Has that started going on in your head yet?
Yeah. So actually, the biggest contributing factor to that was my mom finally fully getting on board.
Oh, that's fun. How did that happen?
She goes, "Oh, you can compete at this level. Go for it." Before, she was much more on the academic side, which is she's mom.
Yeah.
Totally understand, right?
Sure.
And then after I started winning these tournaments, she couldn't be any more supportive of go for it. I mean, if you can win in college, you can win on the mini tours. If you can win a mini tour, you can get on the tour.
Yeah.
So
So how does college wrap up, and how do you start going about trying to do that?
junior year was halfway decent. I didn't knock off any wins, but I want to say, again, I had a handful of top 10s, which is totally fine by me. Senior year, started playing really good again. Unfortunately, got hurt right at the end. I blew out my shoulder, had to have surgery. But
Yeah, this story was interesting to me. So tell us about how you got hurt.
So it's actually probably my most proud moment in all of golf. 6 days before my senior conference championship, all the buddies wanted to go downtown. We're about to graduate. Might as well go out with a bang,
Sure.
right? And me, I'm like, no, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to go to the gym, wake up early, practice in the morning. Boof. Go to the gym, blow out my shoulder.
Working out when you were going to go party.
Exactly. And so I actually texted my physical therapist at the school, Bob, that night. I go, hey, something's wrong. He goes, come in 6 a.m. tomorrow. Puts me through a couple stretching tests, strength tests, and he goes, you need to go have an MRI. Got scheduled for an MRI that afternoon. Full 100% tear on my labrum with substantial rotator cuff damage. So I was like, well, I'm extremely hard-headed. Can I play? Because I could move it. And so I had to pass a strength test, basically, for them to allow me to play. Forced myself to pass the strength test, and then they ended up...
So was it just pain that you had to fight through?
Yeah, and a little limited mobility. And so I passed their requirements, I guess, and they ended up taping my shoulder to my arm. And I think I had 4 across the front, 5 across the back, pieces of KT tape. I don't know if you know what that is. Like the medical tape.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I can hit my driver about 220 yards. Just little dinks. End up winning conference.
Wow.
Yeah, I shot 8 under on my own ball through 3 rounds, hitting my driver 220 yards.
Wow.
Basically, I just happened to make a ton of putts that week. I'd dink my driver 220. I'd have like 200 yards into these par 4s. I'd roll a 3-wood on the green through the gap of the bunkers, and I just happened to make a couple putts that week.
Wow. So you played really well, even hurt.
Yeah.
Right at the end of your senior year.
Right at the end. And then fast forward another month, I'm under the knife, under the scope, and full surgery. And then
What's the recovery time on that?
it was supposed to be 6 months to be able to swing, 8 months full recovery.
And what year is this? You graduated school in
2018. Yeah. So I had surgery. I believe it was July of 2018. And then I got cleared to start moving in December. And then I got cleared to start swinging in February. And so I went full steam ahead. Probably not the smartest idea. Maybe I misunderstood my doctor a little bit, because when he told me I could go full swing, I was like, oh, so I can go back to full-time practice.
Right.
Got it. So I prolonged the recovery period a little bit. I didn't let the scar tissue align. I was able to swing. It's not going to re-tear. It's an artificial tendon now, so everything's totally fine. But I just made the recovery last about another 4 months.
Yeah.
Which maybe it would have been quicker, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure.
But you start playing competitively though. You go to do you go to Q school?
Yeah, so I signed up for Canada Q school basically the day I got cleared from my doctor, and called my dad. I was like, hey, I'm going to be at the range every day. I need your help. Tom, I need your help. Let's get this thing going.
So you've only got a month or so to, after you're finally better from your surgery.
I had 6 weeks to prepare, which for all the high-level competitive golfers out there, 6 weeks to prepare after not playing for 9 months is
right.
It's a tall order, but it can be done. Go to Q school, play great the first 3 days, play great on the front nine the final round. I stumbled a little bit on the back nine, ended up taking 15th by 1. Top 14 get guaranteed starts up in Canada. So then I went up to Canada for the first 6 events, and was basically a bubble sitter. 156 play, and I was Mr. 157, 158.
For months.
For 6 events. So, yeah, that was a month and a half.
Month and a half.
And then I tried to hit some of those Mondays when I was up there, and I think the first 3 in a row I missed by 1. And so it was, you recover from this injury, you're totally healthy, you're totally good to go, and then we'll call the Mondays qualifiers as well. The first 4 qualifiers you go to, you miss by 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back to golf. Enjoy your stay.
Yeah.
So
that's bringing us up 2019, and then what happens when COVID hits? Because you're starting to get ready to play, and you're right there on the cusp. Or do you start playing tournaments before COVID?
So even before COVID, so I came back home after 6 weeks in Canada. I was like, the next events are pretty far out on the East Coast. Let's come back home. Let's try to get ready for Core and Q School and a few other tournaments. Why not? And finally, get the last little touches on recovery. So working with the physical therapy and all that. So I come back home roughly mid-ish July, maybe the beginning of August. And I decide to sit out on Corn Ferry Q School that year, thinking nothing of it. It's like, wait 1 year. It's not a big deal, because it's a large investment to go to that Q school.
Right.
So then I start playing in these state opens, trying to get some money under me, some support. And I play fantastic in 3 in a row.
Oh, that's right. You actually start winning sectional events.
Yeah, so I went and played in the Arizona State, the New Mexico State Open, and the Nevada State Open. And I top 10 the New Mexico and Arizona, so I got some money under me. And then I take second place in Nevada with the final round 63. And now I actually have the money to pay for Asia Q School, for Canada Q School, for Corn Ferry Q School, for these other tournaments, XYZ.
That's great. Tell me about where'd you shoot the 63 at? Because it was Nevada Open.
That's at Casablanca.
Nice.
Okay, and that's where it's, the Nevada Open's held every year. And here's where the story gets interesting. So I shoot that, and we're like, ooh, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, if you can do that final round, you're ready. The Nevada Open's held in November.
Yep, here we go.
December rolls around.
COVID.
Couple news stories.
Yeah.
January rolls around. Q School sign up.
Done. Canceled.
Done. So I went from finally fully healthy, finally having my game back full bore, no questions. Bam.
You know what sucks truly is we've been talking about on the show how much COVID has helped golf. It's really helped golf. It's so heartbreaking to hear your story of you were just right there, second Nevada Open. You're ready to go play and make a living playing golf.
After that stretch, it was probably the highest my confidence has ever been, to be completely honest.
Wow.
And then, there's nothing you can do. At the beginning of COVID, we all thought it was going to be a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks, right? That was the big thing, 2 weeks.
Turns out to be 2 years.
Yeah.
So every Q school got canceled. Asia was shut down for years. They completely shut down the PGA Tour China because of it. All the state opens where you're making your money in the off season, done, canceled. The small events, done, canceled. I think the first few started popping up in the following October, November area. So for the first 10 months, your hands are tied.
So what are you doing? I think this is fun. What happens in early 2020? How are you spending your time?
So right at the beginning when everything shut down and the golf courses shut down, golf is all I know, right? So I was going to find a way to do it. Luckily, I had a buddy, won't name names. Luckily, I had a buddy in the commercial real estate space here in Vegas, and we were able to get a building that nobody was renting or using, and we built a simulator in there.
This is so rad. So you set up a
months.
Full track,
Yeah. So I had my flight scope, I had a net, sorry, Angel, I stole a mat from Angel to use there. It was from the academy side.
That's fun.
And we set up this full simulator in there. And basically the only rule was, because I don't know if you've ever hit a golf ball inside, but it's loud.
Right.
And so basically the only rule was we couldn't use it while the other businesses were in open hours. So 8, 9 p.m. rolls around, send out a group chat to all the buddies,
I'll play golf all night.
We'd show up, 4 to 6 of us at a time and load the flight scope up and just start ripping it.
Wow, that's great. Now, at this same time, middle of 2020, to make some money, I'm guessing, you end up coming back here and working, taking over Tom's school back at the back of the range. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that happens?
Yeah, so Tom was looking to retire. He really was. And no offense to any of his students, but he basically only wanted to work with me at that time when he was trying to retire.
Right.
So, and times were tough. He understood that, and he wanted less students. He started passing me one here, one there, one there, one there, right? It's just so I can basically pay rent. And so I started teaching. I think I hopped in the barn for a month or two during that period as well. If I can't make my money on the course, I got to make it somewhere, right? And so I did that for a little while, basically until tournaments started popping up again in October, November, and then you fast forward all the way till then, and Tom gets ran over by a car.
Right, yeah.
Right. He's riding his bike to work for health purposes. We're oddly enough, on Friday the 13th, just gets blasted.
Yeah.
And it was really tough for me at that time because he was the only person I've ever worked with. So basically the only person I trust,
right?
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not that other coaches don't know what they're doing. They do. But sometimes it's worth its weight in gold to hear certain things from one's mouth than the other.
Yeah.
Basically. And so he gets ran over by this car. He's in the hospital for a month. He comes out, and it was just never the same. Basically, he didn't want to come back to the course.
Yeah, it was too hard to teach.
It was too hard to teach, and it was difficult for him to get there to work with me. So, not only was the career path prolonged by COVID, then the one coach that you trust basically can't coach anymore, except for through text messages and videos, which is helpful, but it's better to be in person.
Sure.
There's little things you can't see over the phone. So it was just this compilation of barriers and hurdles, and it took a toll on my mental, to be completely honest. You can only get knocked down so many times to where you're just like, Jesus,
sure,
give me a break.
Yeah.
So then I started teaching full time. When after that accident, I basically took over all of his students.
Took over his gap.
And gained a few since then, but took over all of his students working full time. Was fortunate enough to work with a handful of professionals in that gap, and I traveled pretty far distances with a few of them. I've been throughout a lot of Europe with some of my professionals that I work with.
Oh, wow. So what are some of your favorite courses you've played over there?
The number one that sticks out in my head, gosh, I forget the name of it, but it's where the Dutch Open is played. It is the manliest of manliest golf courses you've ever seen.
Wow.
I mean, it is a brute. From the first tee box to the 18th green, there's not a single break in the entire golf course.
Sounds like my least favorite course on the planet.
It was just cool to...
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, if you're into that, that's got to be Mecca.
Yeah.
That's got to be so cool.
I love a challenging golf course, and to just be surrounded by these professionals, it's, I mean, battling for 18 holes. There's no birdie stretches. It was cool to watch.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. So back to instruction. One of the things that you're doing here at Angel Park that I think is interesting and will tap in a lot to people who watch our show and kind of what we're doing with this show is your use of TikTok and Instagram in your instruction. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that started and how that works for you?
Yeah, so that's multifold, right? For starters, it's practically free advertising. And the last year I was only teaching full time. I didn't have the headspace to play, so I was like, might as well make money. And so I started doing it specifically to bring in clients.
Right.
If I can pick up one or two here or there, awesome. And then it slowly started to develop into, well, I have two extremely high quality junior golfers that I work with that are looking for colleges. So if I can just post them an insane amount of times and one coach sees them or another coach sees them.
I thought this was interesting. So take it back to when you were trying to get into college and you were sending out emails, right?
Yeah.
Blasting out emails to coaches. It's a different time and a space. So what you're doing now is you're giving your students a platform for coaches to see them potentially and sponsorships to see them.
Yeah, so we didn't really have that space. So I want to say we actually made a video on a video camera. And my dad edited it on his computer, and we basically put it in a PDF file, and I would always attach it to the emails that I sent out. It's basically a swing video of a bunch of different clubs from a bunch of different angles, just so if the coach hasn't seen you play in person, they know what you're capable of. Because people at the top end of golf, they have an eye for it. They can see if you have it, right? So you put these videos together. Now, I can take a single clip of one of my players in 3 seconds, upload it in another 3 seconds, put a couple hashtags on it.
Yep.
And if I get a college coach or two to look at it, boom. So it's not only advertising for me, I also use it as advertising for them. And it's the whole goal is to just get them views. Can I get the right person to see them?
Yep.
I don't know.
That's great.
Maybe it works.
Tell me about a couple of your favorite students right now. I know you've got a couple that are just bangers.
Yeah, so on the junior side of things, 3 really pop out into my head. Skylar Taylor and Drake Harvey are phenomenal golfers. Drake's 15. I never met a 15-year-old that can do this, but he hits it 300 yards on a string. And he's got some of the nastiest wedges you've ever seen.
Well, Harvey's a fun name because I went to school at Bonanza with Billy Harvey, his father, and Scott Piercy was on that team. They were both younger than I was, but Scott Piercy and Billy Harvey won state. Billy Harvey was the number 1 man on that team, even though Piercy ended up playing on tour. So that's fun. So his son Drake is your student now?
Yeah, and to be honest, I've only worked on his swing. And it's basically just making sure that it's in a spot where he can where he can hit all of his shots from.
Yeah.
I've never even touched his short game.
Wow.
If you watch him chip and putt, it is ridiculous. I mean, he hits some of the craziest spinners I've ever seen. And he's just messing around. Just goes, eh.
That's
just like
fun.
that. And then Skylar Taylor's 17. He's the closest one to going to college. And to put it to you this way, last week he was on a legitimate 59 watch. And in my opinion, this was at Palm Valley, and in my opinion, the only reason it didn't happen is because he played his last 2 holes in the pitch dark with his cell phone light.
So he shot 60 or 61?
I think he shot 61. I think he finished with a bogey to shoot 61. Yeah.
Wow.
17. No joke.
One of them I saw on one of the TikToks you did call out a distance or yardage, right? What was that? And who was that?
So that's Drake. And I think that was a sand wedge, and I don't remember correctly, but I was like, all right, call your yardage. And before he swung,
Yeah.
he was 83. And if he hit it something like 83.2.
So great.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites. I love that. So what's your I don't want to bury the lead, but just to give a little foreshadowing, you're getting ready to start playing again.
Yep.
So why don't, before we get into what your next 6 months look like, let's talk a little bit about what your last month has looked like and what your next month looks like, because you're in the middle of it right now.
Yeah, so for starters, when you're playing professionally, it's basically a business model, right? And so, a year or so ago, I told my dad that I was like, I got to take some time off, and I don't know if I'm going to come back. Wasn't sure. And then I honestly woke up one day, and I was just like, I'm ready. So called my dad. We had we'll call it a meeting, basically setting a plan together on what's got to happen. And so just hearing the excitement in his voice was a really good springboard.
Fun.
And so once you dive into it, it's basically all gas, no brakes. So right now, the last month, I have been waking up roughly 4 a.m., give or take 30 minutes, try to be at the gym by 5:30, try to be at the course by 7:30, and club in hand by 8. So wake up, breakfast, morning routine, done, finalized by 8 a.m. And then throughout the day, depending on how many lessons, whenever I'm not teaching, I'm practicing.
So it's all golf, but it's broken up by teaching students and then working on your game.
Yep. So, and some days are different than others, right? So we'll take Saturday, for instance. I go 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. straight. So I don't get to practice in the morning. So I stay later on Saturdays to try to get the same amount of hours. And for those of you in Vegas, the weather is interesting sometimes.
Especially this last month, but it always has been.
So you do your best when the weather's that bad. I mean, we have the indoor facility, so it makes it easier, right? But you do your best to just get in as many hours as possible. Now, going into these first few events, full honesty, they're not going to be pretty.
Right.
They might. I mean, hell, I don't know. It's golf. Maybe I sneak out a win. I don't know. But I have to treat them as just complete rust removal. And, I'll record some stats and see where my game's at, see where I can save a stroke here or there. Because after a year, you're going to be rusty.
I liked the conversation we had about knocking the rust off, because I think I phrased it something as, well, are you looking to work on any specific components of your game? And I thought your answer was great.
So I'm not looking to work on any specific components. I'm looking for what components are lacking. So I'm trying to go into it with an open mind. It's basically backwards,
right?
If that makes sense. So when I played my best golf, I played with live by the sword, die by the sword mentality. Go for it. So basically, these first few events, am I going to go chip it down the middle? Am I going to put it in the center of the green? If I was playing in the U.S. Open, sure, because I don't want to look like an idiot, right? But I'm not going to do that. It's going for everything. It's taking the tight lines. It's trying to, fly a 5-iron into this tiny little corner of the green. And it's going to give you a very clear concept quickly what part needs work.
Yeah.
Because if you can hit, that long iron under pressure into a tight pin, okay, you're good there. If you can take that tight line with the driver, okay, you're good there. And so you kind of have to go balls to the wall to figure that out. Now, the scary part of that side of the sword is you might shoot 80.
Right.
But you also might shoot another 63. I don't know. And that's just some of the, responsibility you have to accept. And so once I figure out what part of the game needs work, where we're going to assess all that based off of the stats, then we'll back it off and play safer and try to make money and blah, 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 blah. But right now it is going for everything.
That's inspirational. I think that's fun. Why don't you tell us about what the plan is as far as, so next month you're going out on the road. Are you starting in California, I believe, but then you've got kind of a plan on how you're going to take it nationally and regionally?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to start off in the neighboring states. It's just the easiest way to do it. So I will go to LA here on Saturday night or early Sunday morning. And my next 3 tournaments will go LA, San Diego, LA. And then after that, I think I'm going to go play one in Arizona. So I'll be in California for like 14, 15 days, just bouncing up and down the coast a little bit. It makes no sense to drive back for a day.
Right.
Right. I mean, the $80 hotel isn't worth the $100 in gas.
Sure.
Right. After that, I am going to play a couple events in Iowa, and I have my U.S. Open qualifier signed up for out there. Fortunate enough to know a couple good guys out there that are hosting at this really phenomenal golf club, so why not go?
Where are you going to play that at?
Um,
I don't need to put you on the spot, but yeah, there's a course that you like in Idaho?
Iowa, yeah.
Iowa?
God, what is the name? I'm losing it right now.
It doesn't matter.
It'll come back. Anyways, after that, the goal is to also go over to Europe and try the Open qualifier. After those 2, I might sprinkle in a few state opens in between there. But after those 2, you're basically front center in Q school season. And then,
are you going to go back to Canada, or have you decided?
No, so I'm at the age now where I'm either going to go for the big ones or nothing at all. Right? So
Corn Ferry.
Live by the sword, die by the sword,
Yeah.
right? So I'll try. My goal is for the next 4 years until something hits, and maybe I hit this year. But Corn Ferry, Euro, and Asia. Those are the 3 big ones.
Yep.
And full honesty, if I at least bring my B game, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I just have to go get my B game back. And if I happen to show up with my A game, bring it on. Right.
Well, there's going to be a lot of fans that you're going to build here locally that are going to be following along. So I think that's fun. What are some of your favorite things? Do you have a favorite thing about golf?
Probably how infuriating it is.
Yeah. That's an interesting answer.
I find a simple bliss in how aggressive of an emotional roller coaster you can have.
That's a great way of putting it.
Like when I've played golf with some of the best people in the world, and if you think that the best players in the world aren't waking up every morning ungodly frustrated at something in their golf game, you're wrong. I mean, it's just always evolving. There's always something to work on. You never know what's going to happen. And a lot of it is because of that emotional side. And coaching this last year, I got to take a back seat and see it from the outsider's perspective inside the ropes. And it's gnarly. I mean, you would have people growing up, or I would have people growing up be like, all right, deep breath, calm down. It's not a big deal. And in your head, you're like, fuck you. Like, you don't know anything. You don't know what you're talking about. And then you see it, and you're trying to help these really high quality players progress, and you're trying to basically tell them the same thing you were told.
Right.
And so me personally, I was learning from that as well. So accepting, acknowledging, and just being willing to ride that roller coaster is probably the most fun part about golf for me.
What's your least favorite thing about golf? What is there anything that you would change about it or you don't like about it?
I would say with the new way course architecture is going, it's creating a fallacy in my opinion, in the game of golf. Distance doesn't make it difficult. And they're starting to build these courses that are just enormous, right? And the guys on tour are still shooting 20.
Are still going to be able to do that.
20 under every week. And so just because you give us a 6-iron into every par 4, we're still going to shoot 65. And so what I think it's done to the common golfer is kind of skew their perspective. And you see all the guys on the range, all they care about is just trying to annihilate the golf ball. And that's not necessarily the game. It's most of what I do with guys I work with is getting them to a position where we can make a more consistent strike. Once we can get the strike, we'll learn how to hit it far.
Right.
But with the way the architecture is going, I think it's just making people try to hit it far right now, immediately, instead of learning the game. So I don't know. I guess I'd consider myself more of a purist. with the game of golf, like you make a course difficult by the pin selection or the tee shot placement or the thickness of the rough or the speed of the greens. Stretching it back 50 yards, to me, okay.
Yeah, you lose course management skills, right?
Yeah.
Which is something we talk about with every skill level of golfer. Course management comes up really fast in the game of golf.
Yeah, I'll put it to you this way. Make the course more difficult internally, not externally. There's no need to make a 8,000-yard golf course.
Yeah.
Then, because we just got a huge influx of golfers with
Right.
COVID and everything. I
Yep.
mean, the game is massive now. You make an 8,000-yard course and you lose people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, view it through the par 3 course here. On any decent weather day, there's no hole with at least 2 groups on it.
Yeah. You can't get out there on a decent weather day. Everybody wants to be
And
out
it's
there.
a par 3 course.
It's funny, and it's true. What about your age interests me because I always have different players that I have in mind. But you grew up watching the game. You liked the game early. Who are some of your favorites? Do you have anybody you model your swing after?
I tried for swing purposes. I try to only model the one planers. That's the way Tom taught me. That's the way I know. Can I swing it like a 2-planer? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I know where it's going? Mm-mm.
Right.
No chance. So I try to only watch the 1-planers for swing. For play style, I like how aggressive Tiger was. I like how aggressive Rory is. I like how aggressive Rahm is. I like the more aggressive person. You got your Brian Harmons out there who's going to top 10 every U.S. Open, but is, what I was saying, dink it dead center,
Right.
dink it dead center. So I like the more aggressive player.
Yeah, I love that. What about the Tour and Live? Do you have thoughts on that, or what are your opinions on those things?
So for Live specifically, the way it was handled when it was introduced by the PGA Tour was a bit ridiculous in my opinion. I'm a PGA Tour fan. I always will be. I mean no harm to the PGA Tour. But if you think about it through other sports, and the one that really pops out in my head that's the easiest to see is soccer. And if you go to Europe, right, you got the Champions League. You got the Premier League. You got the French League, the Spain League. You got all these different leagues, and they're all cohesive, and they all work in the same environment. And nobody hates the other one because they're all working for the same common good of the sport.
Yeah, they all push each other.
So if you view it through a sport that already has leagues, I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest. Now, can they recoup all their initial investments? I don't know. I'm not a money manager.
Right.
I mean, it seems aggressive to me. And then on the Live side of things, the only thing I wish that people would say out there is, hey, this is a job. I got paid more money. Done. When you try to fake it and take that high road, I want to expand the game, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. It's like, dude, you just got wired $100 million.
Yeah, you took the money. Just
Part-
admit it.
part
Most
of-
people don't care.
Pardon my French, but you don't give a fuck about expanding the game.
That's right.
Sorry.
No.
Now, I think they can both live cohesively. I think they can both work. I don't think there's any reason for one to be bad-mouthing the other. And if Live brings in an entire another demographic, cool.
Right.
That doesn't hurt anybody. Doesn't hurt golf courses, doesn't hurt manufacturers, doesn't nobody.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think it's necessary for them to be bad-mouthing each other. I think they've got a long way to go to iron out like the world rankings and the majors. Are they going to be allowed like that?
Yeah.
Because if the Live guys can't play in the PGA Tour majors, then why are the European Tour guys allowed to play in the PGA Tour majors?
Right.
So I don't know.
The PGA Tour has some stuff to figure out.
I'm not in the boardroom, but I don't think there's any reason they can't both exist.
Nope. I think that's a really good way of putting it. Thank you so much, Brandon. I think we're going to find that you've got a lot of fans following you along your journey. That's going to bring us to the end of the first segment of the show. We're going to start the par 5, which is just the same 5 questions we ask every week. Brandon, are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Question number 1. What's your favorite golf movie?
Probably Tin Cup.
10 Cup?
Yeah. If you've ever wondered how a pro lives on the road, that's not on the PGA Tour. So guys in Canada, Asia, Latin America, guys on the mini tours,
That's it.
That's it.
So they're in an RV, but you guys are in a van or whatever.
Yeah. We'll put 3-4 people in the same car. You got 3-4 people in the same hotel room. You'll get an Airbnb that says it's only for 4 people. Next thing you know, you got 12 in there. I mean, yeah, that shows you our lifestyle.
And the commitment. And you already talked about how your philosophy is to rip it and not lay up. And that's kind of the whole basis of that movie too. Yeah. And you even clarified earlier in your answer, you said, if I'm at the US Open, I'm going to aim for the middle of the green. And that's what that movie's about, right? Yeah. He doesn't do it at the Open, which is, I think, its only criticism. Otherwise, it's a perfect golf movie. That's a great answer. Question number 2, what's your favorite club in your bag and why?
I don't think I'd be able to narrow it down to just one, but shared first place, lob, wedge, and putter.
So short game, lob, wedge, and putter.
Lob, wedge, and putter, just because those are essentially the 2 clubs that got me to college,
So you weren't necessarily a ball striker.
No. I played a sling and hook for most of my young career, and it was okay. Like, it got the job done, but, I wasn't flagging it from 200 yards.
Right.
I was roping hooks in there, and maybe it hooked the correct amount. And then the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've become more of a ball striker.
So your lob wedge. That's fun.
Yeah, just saucy.
I love that. Question number 3. What is your dream foursome? So if you could pick anybody alive or dead, who would you play golf with and where would you play?
So I would have to first pick my dad, just because he got me into the game, and I also think he'd throw a fit if I didn't.
A guilt throwing for pops.
So I'd never live that one down. But then I would want to pick Tiger in his prime of primes, and Jack in his prime at the absolute peak. And I would want to find a neutral venue, but a high-quality neutral venue. And so what came to mind was, they both won Masters, right? So what's close to Augusta but not? Pine Valley. I don't think, or at least I don't know, that either of them have a ton of history there. So I think it would be a phenomenal neutral site, and it would be isolated, and my dad and I would basically be able to just sit back and watch them duke it out.
Every person I've asked this question to has had a different answer, and they're all so rad. This one's really interesting. So you and your dad with a front row to see Tiger and Jack square off on a neutral course in their prime.
Yep.
That is a great answer.
Basically like a private match play event.
That is so awesome. I love that. Question number 4, what's your aiming fluid? What are you drinking on the golf course? You're a competitive player. You probably don't drink too much.
So, it's normally just water, Gatorade.
Yeah.
Right. Love iced tea, big iced tea guy. But every once in a while, sometimes you need the opposite of exercise, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, I would say probably once every 2-3 months, the buddies would get together, and mainly it's just some type of light beer.
Drink Coors Light, that type of stuff. Yeah. Cool. Question number 5, and that's going to bring us to our last question of the show, the time when our show may not be PG rated anymore. I think Brandon already swore once or twice, and that's something that we're just going to start plying into the show. But the question number 5 that is fun for us is, what do you beat yourself up with? How do you torment yourself when you hit a bad shot on the course? And there's no wrong answer, and there's no PG ratings. So, Brandon, when you hit, do you ever say the same thing over and over again when you hit something that you're really mad about?
Yeah, so I'll either go one or two ways. I'll either be extremely sarcastic or relatively angry. But it's always quick. I'm over it in a second. So if I'm in the sarcastic mode and the ball's flying off sideways, it's something along the lines of like, be good to me, princess, or sit down, princess, which I probably should get out of my vocabulary. I don't know if that one's going to fly too good.
With Me Too movement.
Yeah,
right?
I probably shouldn't do that. So we'll work that one out. But if it's an angry one, it's just like, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And then it's basically over just like that.
Yeah, you release it that way.
Yeah.
Yep. I love those answers. I love all of your story and all of your answers. Thank you so much, Brandon, for coming in. That was Brandon's story. We'll see you next week. Really want to thank you again for tuning in. We're getting this thing going, and we're having a lot of fun. Next week, I think we're going to have Kevin Swain join us. So until next time, hit 'em straight from your friends at Angel Park Golf Club. Cheers.